This episode is delivered and presented by runners for runners and is for your easy pace runs. Welcome to Runversation, a conversational pace running podcast and a movement for everyday runners. Hi, I'm Rochelle, and this is my co-host, Kate. And hello to you, the runners tuning in.
Hello, Kate.
Hi, Rochelle. How are you?
Good, and welcome to Runversation, our conversational pace podcast for your easy pace running journey.
Yes, and today we are joined in the presence of what I call endurance royalty. I am so excited for our guest today. He's a three-time Ironman World Championship winner. Twice he's won the 73 World Championships. He was actually the first male athlete to win both of those in the same year. Obviously, I'm a fan. I can tell you a lot about our athletes, our guests' achievements, but what I think myself and a lot of people really, really enjoy about this athlete in particular is how he comes across, and I think how he's so humble and modest about his achievements and just seems like a lovely family man. And today that's going to sort of steer where our conversation is going in life after sport. So we're going to give a really big warm welcome to Craig Alexander, also known as Crowie. Thank you so much for joining us, Crowie.
My pleasure. What a great intro. Thanks for having me. Let's have a fun chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to start off every podcast asking the question, what did you see on your run this week?
Well, I was actually up visiting my mum over the weekend. She lives in Coffs Harbour, which is on the north coast of New South Wales, and having a run on Saturday afternoon and saw a whale. We were right on the coast and saw a little whale playing out there. So, yeah, you don't see that on your run every day.
That is amazing.
That is beautiful. Do you know that kind of aligns with not quite as amazing as what I saw on my run this week, but we just relocated to Bustleton this week, and on my run, even this morning, I was running, I ran to the jetty and back, and it's just an iconic thing, and that's our run. From our house to the jetty and back is 8 Ks, and I just was at sunrise, and it was just so beautiful. I did have an eye out for dolphins or whales because you often see them, but I didn't see any today.
Well, it's not as exciting as what I saw on my run this week.
Tell me.
So I've been attacked by a magpie, but I've also now been attacked by a duck.
Oh.
A duck?
A duck.
What were you doing?
Just, minding my own business, going for a run, and the next minute this duck just charged. And you know how swans like to charge with their necks? It was like the same thing, but this tiny little duck, and it was like beak was quacking away at me, and I was like, damn, twice now.
A little bit of tempo work in the middle of the run.
Oh, absolutely. It gets that heart rate going, that's for sure.
I love it. Do you know, I actually experienced very similar, though, a couple of weeks ago. There was, springtime. There was two little big duckies with their little baby ducklings. And I was like, and I stopped to have a look at them. And the big one came at me. I was like, I'm not going to touch you little ones. And then I thought, you know what? I'm like that as a mum. So I was like, okay, I get it. You're protective. I wasn't going to touch them. I just wanted to have a look at your cute little ducklings. But yes, I didn't realize they were so attacking.
Yeah, they're vicious, and they get you lifting your knees quite high off the ground because you just don't want to step on them, or you don't want them to nip on your little ankles. So
you were doing tempo work plus some drills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, drills and strides.
Strides, love it. You gotta put that on Strava, I think.
Oh, I thought about it, but then I was like, no, I just look like an absolute twit. So morning run it was.
I would have given you a kudos. Love it. Well, let's utilize this time that we have with Crowie, and like Rochelle and I touched on, Crowie, we felt like that you're in a lot of podcasts and you're talking about training and all sorts, but we wanted to just get to know you and life after professional sport, because I think between all three of us, whether we're racing or not, our lives are around sport, so it's always life with sport. This is definitely a topic I was trying to Crowie, I always put Nick in every podcast episode. My husband, he's always like, Kate, why do you mention me? But he's in at the moment that transition away from professional triathlon racing. And so when I told him we were chatting to you about this, he was like, oh, I want to tune in and listen. So he's also put forward a couple of things he would love for me to ask you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so I guess we wanted to start with, you were at the highest pinnacle of long distance triathlon and you were there for such a long time. You raced for a long time. And from my understanding, you're still the oldest male athlete to have
Yeah.
won Kona. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Amazing. I didn't know if you'd want me bringing that up or
No,
not
that's
because,
okay.
I think it's incredible.
Makes me feel like I still have an opportunity to make it as a marathon runner.
I know,
Yeah.
and I keep seeing the same. And even in female athletes, it's like they get better as they get older. So I think, yes,
Yeah.
Kate, you've got time. And then I put out a mediocre performance and I'm like, oh. Yeah, I've got time, but I need the times. But I wanted to know, because when I was following your career, I couldn't remember a specific time where you had like a clear retirement. It seemed that you went from long distance Ironman racing and then you still performed at such a high level at 73s, and then still continued to perform at the highest level. And was there a moment where you said, this is it, this is my retirement, I'm done? Or were you sort of happy to have like a bit of a gradual decrease in racing? What was your thought on retirement?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I had a definite end point with Ironman. I got to the point where I had scratched every competitive itch I had at that distance. I still felt there was some improvement left in me, but it was just becoming all encompassing for the whole family. And my kids were at that age now where my oldest daughter was about to start high school. My wife wanted to go back to work, and she'd given up so much so that we could travel as a family. So I began to just feel guilty when I was stepping out to train. And I thought, that's probably a sign that, because you guys know when you're working towards a goal, and you're just immersed in the process, sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees. You're just taking it one session at a time, one day at a time. And it was the first time I'd sort of stepped out of it for a little bit and thought, it's been fun. It's been better than fun. It's been amazing. I knew I was getting older because, you start doing interviews and people are asking you, well, what's next, or how long are you going to keep doing this? And I never sort of put a timeline on it or an age on it. It was more, am I enjoying the process of it all? Is it still a challenge? Is it still lighting my fire? And it was, but I just felt that I could stay in the sport, but not have that sort of 24/7, 365 day of the year obsession that Ironman sort of requires. Such a long race. You guys know it's such a long race. Whenever you're training for Ironmans or marathons, you got to plan your whole year or 18 months. You've only got so many races you're going to do and your preparations are tied up around that. So you're working backwards. And I was always more of a speed athlete. Anyway, I went to Ironman because that's where a lot of, I guess, the sponsorship was and the media attention. But more importantly, I grew up as a soccer player and it was the first thing I ever saw on television to do with triathlon was the Hawaiian Ironman. So, as much as I think I was much more suited to the speed. I was more of a speed athlete growing up. I played all the speed positions in soccer or football. But something about the race when I saw it on television in the 80s and 90s, I thought this looks cool. It looks crazy. It sort of appealed to me. So I knew I was always going to end up in Ironman racing. But then, I had a good, I guess, best part of a decade doing it. And I didn't feel like I was done with the sport, but I felt I was done with that distance. So that sort of had a definite endpoint for me. And it coincided with the kids' schooling and just family. It just made sense that, as I don't like to say all athletes are selfish, but we're self-centered. We're always asking questions like, how's my training going? What's my recovery like? How's my diet or my eating? Strength and conditioning, how's that going? There's a lot of sort of self-centered questioning. And, when you're married and you become a parent, it's kind of the opposite of the way you think. Your thinking starts going off in other directions, like the things you have to do for your family. And that ties in with being a professional athlete as well, because sometimes providing for your family is what you have to do. So,
Yeah.
but it just got to the point where it wasn't about that anymore. I'd won the races that I'd wanted to win, and More importantly, the personal journey had been everything that I wanted it to be, around improving and testing myself. And I just got to the point where I felt that I could still stay involved in the sport. I didn't have to train as much. I could start, you know, diverting my attention into other things that I was passionate about and that I wanted to do, but still hold true to my values in the sport, which are about performing to the best of your ability and preparing to do that. So I think the timeline with Ironman racing, it definitely had a specific endpoint, but it was really the pandemic that just put a final exclamation point on the whole career, because at that point I was going season to season. I wasn't racing as much, but I'd get invitations to do fun races like Busso or some races up in Europe or Asia. So I'd normally pack my schedule with maybe 4 or 6 races for the year. And then that left me plenty of time to do other things. And each year was kind of a year by year proposition. I'd say to my wife, I think I might race again. And she'd be like, do you want to race for another year? I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm still enjoying it. My sponsors are still interested in me doing it. I still really love the training. I was training and mentoring a lot of younger athletes. So that sort of gave me a new lease on the training side of things and the motivation. But then when the pandemic hit, it sort of was, I was actually training up for the season, the 2020 season. I'd had an invitation to race in Europe, and I hadn't raced in Europe for a few years. So I thought, yeah, I'll do it. It'll be fun. It was a really high quality field. I thought this will be a good challenge, a fun challenge. But then, yeah, when things happened the way they happened that year, it just sort of overnight I made the decision. I mean, it's probably a good time to put the cue in the rack and just move on to something else.
Well, there wasn't a lot of other options, was
Yeah.
there? So,
Yeah.
And I was the same as a marathon runner. I just started to hit the peak of my career, had just gone to Worlds the year before, and then nothing.
Yeah. And I remember Nick doing exactly the same. There was, because there was still the travel in Australia, and I think Cairns was one of the last races that you could have raced, and he was training up for it, and then it got cancelled 3 or 4 weeks before. And we went on our baby moon instead in WA. And what you've said so much, Chloe, just resonates with myself and with, I'm sure, so many of our listeners of then finding that balance as being a parent and a family man, and trying to balance it all is really, really hard. And I remember Nick even saying, he really enjoyed, we just went to Esperance instead. And he was like, that was just as good as doing an Ironman. I was like, correct. That's right. No.
Right answer.
Yes, exactly. He had to say that. I'm sure maybe he says something different to other people. No, kidding. And did you ever have any period of uncertainty when that, I suppose, like Rochelle said, you didn't really have a choice. It was, we couldn't leave Australia. You couldn't go and race. Races weren't on. But do you, or maybe even still to this day, do you have times where you go, was that the right time? Or could I still be racing at that level? Like, is there still that thought process that goes through your mind?
Another great question. It's funny, I mean, really, I was lucky because I was at the back end of my career. I feel for the athletes who were in their peak years, in their prime years. I mean, those years were stolen from a lot of athletes. And it's hard to explain to people who don't understand endurance sport. Like, you take a decade and a half to get to a certain point, and then something like that happens. And it's hard to reconcile because you've put other things in your life on hold. But the thing that I struggled, I struggled a lot because I started racing as a 20-year-old in the sport, got my pro license very quickly, was racing as a professional by 21. And then I was 46 when the pandemic hit. So 25 years I raced as a pro athlete. And then overnight, I had no structure all of a sudden, it's a weird thing to say, but my wife's an emergency nurse. So she went from part-time or casual work to 70 hours a week overnight during the pandemic. I was doing the homeschooling at home, which I loved. And I always felt that when my serious racing years are over, I'm going to just immerse myself in family life, because I hadn't missed a lot, but certain things I had. And I thought I'm not going to miss these years when the kids are young. I'm just going to jump in and do everything. So I loved the homeschooling. I loved being there every day. But it was so weird, like every second of my day had been accounted for and planned for 25 years. And then all of a sudden I'm waking up and we do the homeschooling thing. When I was the homeschool principal, we were done by 9 o'clock every day. So,
Homeschool principal, I love it.
but yeah, we train because maybe we're working towards a goal, but we also train because it's part of who we are. Like we love to be fit and healthy. I love how training makes me feel. I feel like I've accomplished something in the day, even if it's not a hard session. I feel like I've done something. It makes me more productive in other things that I do. And yeah, I think not having any structure or immediate purpose, it was really strange. I'm not going to say I got depressed or anything, but I just woke up. I was lost some days. Like I'd be just
Lost.
looking at my watch thinking, what's going on? Like that never happened for 20. I just knew what was next, minute after minute. And so I think it is strange. And I think that's the thing as an athlete, or the main thing you need to prepare for is just allocation of your time. You wake up one day and all of a sudden you're not a professional athlete anymore. But then you hear people all the time say you need to plan for that, and you do. You need to have a sort of a transition period where you put things in place so that, maybe not the day you retire, but pretty soon after you're sliding into a routine or a structure, because that's how we're wired. We're used to following that and not submitting to the routine. You embrace the routine. It's one of the great things about being an athlete. And when that's sort of removed from you, it can put you in a bit of a tailspin.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like for me, training, 7 days a week, twice a day for, 15 odd years, getting to the stage of my career where I wanted to be. And then it just literally was forced upon me to take a physical activity holiday. Like there was absolutely nothing that I could do. I could leave my house for, short periods of time, but I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't go catch up with my running friends. And if I did go for a run, that time frame was quite limited. So you feel very lost within yourself.
It was such a strange time, that 18 months or 2-year period.
And I suppose for you, Crowe, as well, like you said, it was almost like an overnight decision for you, because given it was in COVID, and so you didn't have time to plan. Like you said, an athlete kind of needs to come up with a plan of like what to fill that time with, or to come up with a schedule. But then I guess the silver lining for you was you were homeschool principal. So then you were given something as well, I guess, in that time. But that is so interesting because, now Nick is interested in lawns and barbecuing and
going to the tip.
Going to the tip, all these things. Do you still, because obviously you were Crowe Ironman World Champion, do you still, you still said like your physical activity and your training is still, regardless, it's like even this morning I got up and went for a run because I knew I would be better in this recording. I would be better mum to my kids because I felt like I'd done something. I work so much more productively. So I feel like even though if I don't race, I still identify as, I feel like an athlete, or at least I feel physically fit. Do you still feel like do you still identify as that, I guess, Crowe? Like obviously not on the world stage, but do you still feel like you're that athlete inside? Is that still there as your identity, or do you feel like you've transitioned a little bit more into someone new?
No, I think, we are who we are, for better or worse. And even people who just train for health and wellness and quality of life, and maybe have never raced competitive, they're still athletes. They're still doing something in a consistent fashion. And I think the way we view ourselves is more important than the way others view us. But yeah, I was always active growing up, played sports from when I could walk, mainly team sports. But yeah, it's still part of my daily routine. I think when you're used to so much structure in your training and having to check off benchmarks in a session, whether it be heart rates or certain metrics or parameters that you need to, every session has a purpose. I think that's a certain way of thinking, but I've easily been able to transition into this idea of sometimes there's no purpose to the session in terms of trying to build endurance or speed or anything. The purpose is just getting out the door and enjoying it. So Yeah, that transition was quite easy for me, and actually it was liberating in a sense. I mean, I loved holding myself accountable in sessions, but equally now I like stepping out the door and I haven't given a moment's thought to what I'm going to do, and just think, oh well, I've got 40 minutes. I'll
Something.
go out for 8K. I mean, my default pace is 5 minutes per K. I'll just jog around the suburb or whatever, and
Yeah.
just go out for something, and it feels good to do it. For me, it's about actually just getting it done. Like if I run out of time or other things pop up in the family life, and um, I still get a bit mad at myself because I think there's enough time in every day that if you're organized enough, you can always fit it in.
Yeah.
So the athlete in me still wants to get it done early in the morning.
Yeah.
Just to get it done before the kids get up maybe, or there's other stuff to do, because I think then you've got it in your back pocket for the rest of the day. It's not hanging over you.
Yeah.
That exact same mentality. My thought process is always get up, have my coffee, go for my run or do my gym workout, come home, and then I'm done before the boys are even awake. And I love it because then I just feel like exactly what you said. It's in my back pocket. It's done. I don't think about it for the rest of the day. I've done my thing. I feel good. And, hearing you say you still will always identify as that, I think like yourself and most of our listeners, we've always been people growing up doing sport, and it's so nice and refreshing and comforting to hear you say it's still just you. Your identity hasn't changed. You still just love that. It's so like, it just makes me smile. I think that's such a nice outlook on it. And it's it almost feels like a breath of fresh air, because I think you hear a lot of these interviews with athletes about life after sport and they see a huge change in it. And I feel like you would give a lot of athletes a lot of positivity, like hearing what you just said about, when it comes to the end of their professional career, that you're still the same person. And I think that's so lovely.
Yeah, well, I think the challenge is we get into sport because we love it. And then if it's in the cards that you become good enough to make a career out of it, it's a dream come true, right? You're getting paid to do something that you started doing for free. And the challenge post-career is finding something that lights your fire or you enjoy as much, because, the great thing about having a long career was that for a long time I got to do something that I loved to do every single day for the majority of every day. And then all of a sudden it's not your job anymore. And I think it's for me, it wasn't about my identity changing. It was just about finding something that lit my fire the same way. That mental sort of transition was more challenging.
So how did you go about finding like that new challenge? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who might be struggling with like, oh, okay, so who am I now? Like, what's next?
Well, that is the challenge. I mean, it's not the knowing, it's the doing. I think we all know that we need to try and fill that void and find purpose in something else. But how do you replicate the love of your life outside of the personal love of your life, something professionally? How do you replicate that? How do you, and sometimes I look at people in business or in jobs that they love, and, they have a long career, because in an academic job or entrepreneurial job, your body doesn't break down. So it doesn't, or for whatever reason, you leave the sport. So you're always envious of people. But I mean, I had a 25-year career, and it's hard to replicate, but I did get some good advice quite late in my career. A very good friend of mine, he's a successful business coach. And anyway, we met because he asked me to give a keynote at his company. And then afterwards I said, I'm not sure why you asked me to do that. You know more about this stuff than I will ever know. But he was like, yeah, sometimes people just need to hear it from a different voice though. And, but we became great friends. And, he said to me, just one day we were having coffee, he said, you might want to find some other reasons, just have a think about and explore the reasons that you race. Is it about just continuous improvement? Is it for your family? Whatever. There's no right or wrong with those sorts of motivations. It's very personal. But he said, sometimes it's great to have a purpose bigger than something like that. And, so I started aligning myself with some charities and becoming an ambassador. And it was great advice, actually, that he gave me, because it was very fulfilling, to feel like, and look, I always had it in perspective. My wife is an emergency nurse, so she would often come home from work and I'd say, oh, how was your day? And she's like, oh, we had a shooting. We had a backyard pool drowning. And I was just like, wow, how was your day? I'd be like, well, I swam, biked and ran. It was fun. It's not quite at the same level of what other people do in their day-to-day jobs. So I think I always had it in perspective that we're doing sport for a living, but it's fun. It's not life or death. And in a lot of cultures, but in Australia, we put athletes on pedestals, and in fairness, they do inspire generations and the younger generation. So I think not downplaying the role of athletes in community. They definitely have that aspirational and inspirational role that they can play. But yeah, I always felt like I'm not saving lives here. So, but getting involved with some of these charities it was just made me feel good to think that I was doing something other than just trying to win a race for myself and my family. So it was great advice I got from Paul, my friend, and he said it's just the way we work as humans. Connection's important, and having purpose greater than what we see in our own immediate sphere is important. And that's something that helped me, I think, move through the career and feel like, because I always had this idea that professional sport is very cutthroat. It's bottom line. It's like business. There's explanations and there's rationalizations, but in the end, the media, your partners, they look at the result. And as athletes, we know a million things go into getting to that point, and it's so much more than the result. But in the end, that's what you're judged on, and that's fine. And I think it does something to your thinking over the years, that you understand that maybe you only add value when you win. And my friend Paul was the first one. He said to me, no, he said, no, that's rubbish. You add value in so many more areas than just that. And at the time I couldn't see it, but, getting involved with some different things, a couple of charities and a few other things really helped me understand that, you value, because if you go to any sports psychologist, they'll say to you, you have to separate who you are from your identity as a person from your identity as an athlete. It's hard to do. Every athlete will tell you it's hard to do, because
absolutely,
when you start performing well, you get rewarded based on not your personality, on your results. So I think it's very easy for the lines to get blurred with that sort of self-identity. But just getting involved with other things outside or associated with the sport, but not in the direct realm of performance, certainly helped the transition into post-career.
Yeah.
As someone who was following along with your career, Crowe, you could see that as someone from the outside. Like myself, my brother-in-law and my sister still are obviously big Crowe fans. And like I said at the start, it was because I knew you did a lot of charity work, and it was because you'd always come across it in that way. Like you always gave the vibe, and now it's so nice to just hear you saying all of that, because you could see it in your career that you were doing your racing also for something bigger. You could see it just from following you along from the outside, and that you could definitely see you had that other purpose there other than just in it to win it. And that was so refreshing and nice. And I think it, as obviously the positive things that you did for these charities as well, I think it also just set a good example for anyone in triathlon to kind of follow along with that as well, and know that you could do your racing at the highest level and have another purpose or do it for a greater good as well. It was definitely something that I think, all of your good performances aside, that you brought to triathlon. So it's really nice hearing how you came to that now, because like I said, I've seen it from the outside, but hearing your story there and that advice that you got and then putting it into practice. And I think that had such a positive influence in the endurance world.
Well, it was definitely a two-way street. I got a lot out of it, as I said. So I got so much out of, when you're an athlete, you sometimes the obligations and a lot of the things on the periphery almost become an inconvenience. You just want to train and recover and, rinse and repeat. and you get locked into that cycle for a long period of time. But yeah, I got so much out of being involved in those other things. So it was a two-way street for sure.
Yeah. And then you've also like now found a new purpose, creating other avenues for yourself to still be involved in the sport, which, you know, did you want to chat about maybe Training House or Senseigo?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously, you know, there's going to be a lot of years to live after your racing. So you need to have something to do. And Senseigo came about through just, well, the guy who managed the majority of my career lived in the US, and that's where we lived the majority of the time. And you know, he always said to me, he thought I was very good at just getting a team of people around, and you know, my only focus was trying to get better. So I could have tough conversations with coaches or advisors or mentors, and they could give me really critical feedback, and I would never take it to heart. I thought, okay, that's really good information. I need to improve here or there. And, you know, he always said that, you know, unlike a lot of other athletes he worked with, I had a good ability to consistently surround myself with good people professionally. So I thought, well, maybe that could be the blueprint for, you know, after my serious racing days are over, just making that sort of a team available to any athlete who wants it. And that could be around things like any of the performance components that we know are important: strength and conditioning, nutrition, scheduling training, exercise science, you know, organizing training camps so any recreational athlete has the opportunity to go into a nice environment and train like a pro athlete would, and have access to those resources. And so it was this whole team philosophy or team environment. And the name was, again, my manager came up with a name. So sans in French means without. So it means without ego. And he just thought that, yeah, I had an ability that when I was trying to just improve and we would be doing the debrief after a major race, I wasn't so interested in getting pats on the back. I just wanted to know how to get better. So I just got as much honest and legitimate feedback as I could to try and improve. And he said, you know, you just took the ego out of it. And it felt natural to do that for me, because in that moment, we're just trying to improve and get better. Sometimes from a performance perspective, you know, you often want to, I mean, I don't know if you want to race with ego, but you want to race with confidence. But in the moments when you're actually trying to improve and you're stripping everything back, I think that's not the time to be prickly when people are, I don't like to use the word criticizing you, but critiquing you. It's an important part of the process, as you guys know. So yeah, that's where the name came from. Sans ego or sans ego. And it's been fun. I mean, my main role in the business is I go to our training camps. So we've run camps all over the world. This year we've had 2 in Hawaii, 1 in Europe, Mallorca, Spain, and 1 in North America, the Blue Ridge Mountains on the East Coast. But we've had a lot of camps in Brazil, Sao Paulo, Rio. We've had camps in Medellin, Colombia, Newfoundland, Canada, Toronto, Tucson, Arizona, Boulder, Colorado, up in Asia, Singapore. Yeah, we've been all over the place. So, Senseigo.
Runversation training camp. We're going to go join one.
I'm just like, yep.
You guys need to join it.
You're going to?
Fuck me.
Spain or Hawaii. Come to that one, ladies. You'd love them.
Hawaii. Yeah. I am sold in Hawaii. So, you don't have
Hawaii. Here I am.
Training camps are great because you hang out as a group of athletes. Everybody's got a different story and on a different journey, but you share 3 or 4 days together, training together, great locations, socializing, like you eat meals together throughout the camp. Yeah, they're good fun. You accomplish a lot during those training camps. So,
and you're making memories at the same time, and friends all around the world, which is, you know, ultimately what life is about, is making friendships and traveling, seeing different places, experiencing different things. So
yeah, and a lot of people who come to our camps are repeat offenders. They keep coming back year after year. So that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
But, so we've got a little network. So, yes, that's one of the little projects I'm involved with. Another one is, it's a company called Brood. and it was founded by a guy. He's again, he's a business coach, and he's been involved in transforming organizations for 25 years. So basically, when big companies, and I won't mention any names, or governments end up becoming dysfunctional and wasting money, they bring him in, and he fixes big businesses, and normally it's to do with, in business, as you guys know, a lot of the same things in sport, to do with culture, to do with behaviors, to do with attitudes, having the right people around you. All of the same themes are in play. So anyway, as a passion, he wanted to help up and coming young athletes who may be lost to the sport because they can't fund their journey anymore. So he founded this business, and he's still transforming organizations is where the revenue comes from, but about 25% of the revenue that comes into this business gets diverted towards funding up and coming elite athletes. So he brought me in to help identify the younger athletes, and then put a structure in place around them to help them continue their journey. If they've fallen off from their national governing body, off the funded program, or for whatever reason, maybe their sport that they're in doesn't have a national governing body, but we just give them access to resources and the help that they just need to continue along in their journey. So that's another cool little project I've been involved with. We've been in operation about 3 years now, but the first 2 years was a lot of heavy lifting around the planning and generating the revenue. And now we're starting to, we had our first real success story last year. A young triathlete, Luke William, was going to retire from the sport, and we picked him up and got him onto the Olympic team. Well, he got himself onto the Olympic team, but we helped him out. Yeah, he was a little disillusioned. I mean, just a gun athlete, a world-class athlete. And again, you guys know that often when athletes leave a sport, it's not because they're not good enough a lot of the time. It's for other reasons, in and around whatever. So we started working with Luke and worked with him for 12 months. And it was one of the best things I've been involved with recently, watching him qualify to get to Paris and continue in his career. So, and then another project.
Pathway, his career, his whole, like, you've changed his future by doing that. It's incredible. That's amazing. Nick and I used to try on the smallest scale that we possibly could, because we used to have a physio and a strength clinic, and we would provide strength training and physio for the elite young athletes in Perth that we could complimentary, like just give up our time because we couldn't afford to sponsor any, but we wanted to help them. And Nick always said exactly what you said, Crowe. When he was starting, he wished he had people help him. He really struggled to get the funding, get the sponsorship, get the connections to get going. So we wanted to try and do something similar. And one of them was Nick Thompson, and he just did incredible with the World Championships.
Yeah.
And we would do his strength stuff for free, and still do. We always reach out to him and say, look, Nick, let us know what we can do to help, because you just need to, sometimes when people are starting, people like yourself, Crowe, with that company, like I said, you can completely change athletes' whole careers and therefore their futures. So that's incredible.
Yeah, it's, well, all power and credit to Warren, the founder. I think anyone who's been in any sport for long enough, particularly if it's a government-funded sport or you're in a national governing body, you just see that there's not enough money to go around, and it can be very political as well. And there's often conflicts of interest and agendas and whatever. That's a conversation for another day. But the end result usually is that athletes who are good enough sometimes slip through the cracks. And it's interesting though. We've had a few sports reach out to us, because I think a lot of sports understand that working with other organizations can help. It's not a competition. It's just areas where you might not be able to fund an athlete. And that's where we've got a lot of our athletes from that we're helping, is just athletes who have fallen off because they don't meet the funding criteria anymore for whatever reason. It's been enjoyable. And, we started in triathlon because that made sense to do that, but we've had meetings with a lot of other sports as well. And I think the wider we can cast the net to catch talented young athletes, the better.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, money is everything in sport, and if you don't have money, there's no opportunity for anybody. And I'm grateful to Kate for giving me her services too back in the day. Kate wrote my program for free, and I couldn't afford.
This whole started. Rochelle was looking for a strength coach. I knew she was up and coming elite marathon runner, and I wanted to work with her, and she wanted to work with me. So we did it all for complimentary for, well, till now, years. 7 years now, and then here we are. So it's
cool.
not only, I think, the sport that you get out of it, but like what you were saying with your training camps, these connections. I mean, Rochelle and I are now such good friends. We're so positive for each other. We're now doing this, hopefully, long term, and you can create so much more than just results as well, which, like you said, Corey, yes, they're the important things. They're what sponsors want, and they are, at the end of the day, I guess, what dictates a lot. But creating other things important in life, and outside of Rochelle and I being athletes, we've created this, and this is now our thing that we like to do and enjoy. So it's amazing how it all does tie in and
close. Yeah,
and it's what leads to results in the end anyway. When people feel valued or supported, you get the most out of them.
Absolutely. Everybody appreciates, a little bit of help somewhere along the line, and if you can give back, that's even more amazing.
So what I'm hearing is Rochelle's 2:34 marathon was actually because of me.
Yes.
That's what I took out of that conversation. No.
Nothing else. It was all you, Kate.
I'm kidding. I love it. Can you take it? Oh, sorry, you go, Rochelle.
No, that's right. I was going to talk about meeting people. You've made a lot of friends along the way, and that's how you then got into doing what you're doing with Training House as well, I believe. When I was speaking to you in Sydney, it was one of your friend's daughters had a vision, and you got involved in that vision.
Yeah. So it's been a fun 12 months with Training House. But that's exactly how it started. So one of the first triathlons I ever did, I was so green and wet behind the ears. I knew nothing, had no coach. And I drove to this race with my then girlfriend, now wife, and also one of my good friends who was also new to the sport, who went on to win an Olympic gold medal in triathlon, Simon Whitfield. And we had no idea. We had absolutely no idea between the two of us. And we turned up at this race, and it was actually a qualifying race remember the televised series we used to have, the Grand Prix series back in the day?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but Simon was a little younger than me, but he'd been in the sport a little longer, and he'd also run through high school. So he was already quite an accomplished runner, but we were both new to triathlon, and we've turned up at this qualification race for the Formula One series, and we were staying at a backpackers hostel in Jindabyne, because the race was at Lake Krakenbach. And yeah, we met a guy, the guy had his bike there, and we're like, "Oh, are you here for the race?" And we started chatting, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just heading out for a warm-up ride to check the course out. Do you guys want to come?" And we're like, "Oh, is that a thing, checking the course out?" And he's like, "Yeah, you got to check the course out." So we said, "Yeah, just give us 20 minutes." We ran back, built our bikes up, and we went out. And his name was Mark Clough, and he was older than us, but he was a very good professional athlete. And anyway, fast forward, he retired from pro racing, but still races in triathlon. Very successful age group athlete, qualifies for all the championships, winning his age group left and right. And in Kona one year, I actually met his daughter, who was, I think, 10 at the time. This was a long time ago, 16 or 17 years ago. And yeah, and then last year, Tyler reached out to me and said, my dad suggested I reach out to you. We should, I'd love to have a chat, rack your brain about different things. Anyway, I met her for a coffee, and I love the idea. What she was doing. So she's a runner. She's a very keen runner. She's not into triathlon, but it was her. So her dad and her brother are right into triathlon. So they travel to a lot of races, and she travels to support. And she thought, I need to have something, a little project going that brings me to the events as well. So, yeah, we were just, I guess, throwing ideas around, and I said, I really need to introduce you to this person and that person. And then she just said, "Would you like to be involved?" And I said, Yeah, I'd love to be involved. There was so much synergy there. I mean, the name Training House as well. 12 or 13 years ago, when I was living in Colorado, I was involved in a project called Training House. What we were trying to build a facility to run training camps out of. And we had the funding to do it. We had the land. And at the last minute, we got gazumped. I think the council rezoned the land and it wasn't for a commercial building anymore. But we had the name Training House, and I always loved the name. And coincidentally, that's the name that Tyler had. So yeah, there was just so many nice synergies there. I mean, I've known her dad 30 years. And I just loved what she was doing. I mean, you guys as athletes know that, especially nowadays, I mean, maybe 20 years ago, not so much, because there just wasn't the range of nutrition and the brands and the products there are now.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's a completely different ball game these days. You might like a gel from a certain company, but an electrolyte from a different company, and maybe a different company again for your recovery protein or your recovery supplement. And I remember just thinking this at the end of my career, that you can't just go to one brand for everything. You need to sort of diversify, because, you know, we just have different tastes around, I guess, the products, but also different products work differently for us. So it made sense to have everything under one roof, and that's where Training House came about. So Tyler's definitely been the driving force. She's a dynamo, that lady. And I've just tried to help out where I can. But it's been so fun, and you know, we're now trying to reach out and sponsor. So we've partnered with a lot of, I guess, run clubs, triathlon clubs, but we're trying to branch out into individual sponsorship as well. So we've got a couple of athletes on our books, and one of them's Nick Thompson, who you mentioned before. So,
yes, I saw the big Training House when he crossed the line.
And so it was awesome to be over there in Nice and just watch him finish 7th in the world. And I've got to know him the last few months, and I really like him. I love the Ogging squad. I love everything that he represents, having fun in the sport, hanging out with his mates.
They kind of make it quite cool, and I like that. I think it encourages a lot of young people to get into the sport as well, and fun. You nailed it, Croy, of you can perform at the highest level, come 7th in the world, and still have fun. And still have your mates around you and have a laugh and enjoy it, and still be at that level. I think there are enough people that take themselves so seriously and feel like it has to be that way. And that's fine if that's your jam. But I love that Nick brings a different element. I think it was Texas when he was blowing a kiss. And there's this amazing photo of him just going on the bike. And I just think, good on you. You do you. I love it. And because it's different, and I think triathlon sometimes needs that.
Oh, absolutely. He's an awesome personality.
Yeah, he is. He's great. The whole Ogging squad is, so definitely a shout out to them. And I also wanted to add that Crowe has very generously also given all of our listeners a 15% off code. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep. Rochelle's got the code, the link, so she can share it with your listeners.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yes.
Just your extended community, your wider community. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for that.
Have I put him in there, and am I just giving everybody this discount code? Kate, no.
No. All good. No, thank you very much for that, Crowe. You were very nice to mention that to my husband when we met you in Sydney, and then I followed up. So, yeah, and that's how this all came about, because, we met Crowe in Sydney at the Marathon Expo, and he was just so lovely, and you just took the time to chat to us, and it didn't matter how many people were waiting in line to speak with you. You were there and you were in the conversation, which was really lovely. So thank you.
Well, look, it scored me an appearance on this podcast, so I was the winner. I was the lucky one.
Oh, thank you.
Crowe, I would love to know, outside of your businesses, your family and sport, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I catch up with friends a lot more now than ever, which I like to do. People might have at some point said I was introverted or antisocial. Maybe my wife thought that at some point, but no, when I was training, it was all about that. So, I like to catch up with people. I surf. I've taken up surfing again. So I surfed as a kid growing up, and then didn't surf for a long time, maybe only once or twice a year for 20 years. But my son's right into it. So the last 5 or 6 years, I've just got right back into it. So surf. What else do I do for fun? Play a bit of guitar. I pick up the guitar once in a while. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, something else I did growing up. Played a little bit of guitar. Taught myself how to play, and yeah, we had a little group at school, at high school. But yeah, just when you're traveling and you got other things going on, I was never good at balancing. I was all or nothing. So I was all in on. I didn't have the bandwidth to sort of diversify my attention. So
Yeah.
just a lot of things I did growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we go into our quickfire round that we've got, Kate? Now we're talking about fun.
Yes, absolutely. And I have an extra one in my mind. Don't let me forget to ask. It's not on the list.
All right.
But I'd catch him out. No, I'm kidding.
We did send you a few questions already, so hopefully you've got them ready to go. But what was your favourite race?
Well, Hawaii was one of them for obvious reasons. It's just a great race. And another one that I loved was there was a race in the Caribbean, the US Virgin Islands, St. Croix. It was a very famous half Ironman back in the day. So yeah, it was just a really hard course, great homestay family we had. And it was always the first weekend in May. So my eldest daughter, who's now running in college, she celebrated about five birthdays in the Caribbean.
Oh, wow.
So it was always a fun weekend.
Yeah, it would be, definitely. And weirdest pre-race habit?
Weirdest, I don't know. The only pre-race habit or ritual that I had with any consistency was just reading back through my training diary. I used to do it in race week and on race morning. It was I just had a handwritten journal. And again, that was a ritual that came about. My wife suggested quite early in my career that I might think about doing that. She thought I'd get a lot of benefit out of it, and I did.
Did that give you like confidence, Croy? Did that sort of reiterate to you, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this?
Yeah.
Race
yes, it absolutely it did. I think it was just a very intentional thing to do where, again, sometimes as athletes, we do a session, we check it off, and then it's gone, and it's on to the next, onto the next, onto the next. But when you sit down and take the time to go through the whole body of work for a 3, a 6, or a 12-month build up, and when I was in Hawaii, I'd read it the whole week. It'd take me all of race week to read the last 12 months worth of work, and it just made me feel good that I'd committed myself to it, and whatever happened was going to happen. But I'd done a lot of work, had a lot of great help as well. That message was always reinforced as well. Great training partners, great mentors, and yeah, it left me in a good place mentally to go out and attack the race.
Amazing.
Yeah, nice. What is your coffee order?
Flat white.
Normal milk?
No, all normal. No sugar, just normal flat white. Yeah.
Do people get confused when you order that? Are they like, that's too standard, because these days you can get anything. I'm the same. I'm just long black, and people go, do you want milk on the side? I'm like, no, then I would order a flat white. Like, I just want just give me a long black.
No, it's so true. They hover a little bit because you say flat white and they're hovering, waiting for what are the extras? What are that? Yeah. But there's, no, that's it. Just a flat white.
Flat white. Nice. I love it. Who's been your most inspiring athlete that you've raced?
Well, I've raced a lot over the years. That's a lot of inspiring athletes were a lot of the athletes I trained with. And when I was up in Boulder, had some great training partners, but two women who come to mind, Julie Dibbins and Marinda Carfrey, were great training partners. Not only were they awesome, world-class athletes, but just good people, hard trainers, which I loved, good for a little bit of banter. So they were always inspiring to me, just the way, and that they were, when I would train with those two ladies, they actually were racing each other as well, but they could still train together. And they were just, I thought, this is so easy and nice. You go out for a training ride or a run, and they would race each other to the death on the race course, but they just had each other's back the rest of the time. I thought, those two things should be able to coexist. So, but
it's very rare.
Yeah, I think it is in this competitive world that we live in. But one guy who always comes to mind, a guy I raced, was a German guy called Andreas Raelert.
Yeah.
He never won in Hawaii, but he had 7 podium finishes there. And I raced him and his brother. And his brother was a 2-time Ironman 70.3 world champion. But Andy was he was just a gentleman and just a really lovely guy. Like in 2009, it was my 3rd year racing in Kona, and I was defending the title as well. And it was his first year. He was making his debut at the World Champs, and mate, just an accomplished athlete. He'd won a silver medal at 70.3 Worlds the year before. He'd raced at 3 Olympic Games. I think he'd finished 4th or 5th in one of them. Won everything in short course. Just a superstar athlete.
Nice.
And I knew the boys. I knew the brothers. And I knew their manager very well. I'd known their manager for a long time. So, but a couple of crazy things happened. I mean, 100K into the bike where you have special needs. What normally happens in Hawaii is you're riding up the hill as you're about to make the turn, about 100 kilometers into the bike ride, and special needs is on the other side of the road as you're coming out of Harvey. And you shout your number out, and then they get your bag and they have it waiting for you when you come the other way. So I was number 1. I was defending champ. I called out number 1, made the turn. As I'm coming out, they had bag number 11. They didn't have number 1.
Oh,
So
no.
I've grabbed it and realized it was number 11. And I handed it back. I just handed it off to a volunteer because I thought that's somebody else's bag. That's not my bag. You know, it's not going to have my nutrition in there, and number 11 is going to be waiting for their nutrition. Anyway, Andy Raelert is behind me and must have seen all this. And about a K later, he comes riding up next to me during the race with my bag in his mouth. So
Oh, wow.
what had happened was when they brought out number 11, and I said, oh, that's not my bag. Another volunteer must have had my bag and they were running, but I just thought, oh, I'm going to miss my nutrition. So I just took off. Anyway, Andy brought it up to me in the middle of the race. It was his first Ironman World Championships. And then later on in the race, we ended up hopping off the bike and we ran together for 25K shoulder to shoulder during the marathon. And his brother was out there, his younger brother. And when I ended up dropping Andy, and so now I'm in second chasing down, I ended up catching the leader and Andy finished 3rd. His brother's giving me splits back to where Andy is and up the road. And I just thought they're too nice. These boys are just so nice. But yeah, Andy, he's a guy I always admired, and just a down to earth guy. I mean,
It's a shame he never won it. It's
well, yes and no. I guess it's easy for me to sit here as someone who did want to say it's a shame, but I hope he feels that he had a great career, and I think he does. I mean, he finished on the podium 7 times.
Yeah.
He did everything in the sport. He had the utmost respect from all of his colleagues or his peers. Everyone respected Andy Raelert because he's just a nice guy and just an unbelievable athlete. I mean, there was one race, I think it was 2015. It was the first year or the second year that I wasn't racing anymore. He got kicked in the face in the swim. I think broke his nose, and he still finished 2nd. He ran from absolutely nowhere, and he's normally a great swimmer and a great biker, but he was way back in the field and ran up into 2nd place. I thought, this guy's just a freak show. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I guess it would have been a nice exclamation point for him to win it, but I mean, yeah,
Incredible.
he's a guy I admired for sure.
Awesome.
One word to describe your post-retirement life.
Great.
Oh, that's nice. And I would also love to know from you, what's your biggest training hack, I suppose, for being a parent with kids? And you're obviously someone who wants to be involved in family life and wants that time. I think Michelle and I, and again, so many of our listeners, and I know that Nick would love to know this answer as well. What hack or advice or something that you could help us with trying to find that balance that doesn't really exist, but something that might help that process?
Yeah, it's the eternal question, the balance. It's important to communicate with your other half. And, you know, I was so lucky with Neri. She knew that I didn't want to miss family time. And I feel lucky and also sport. As a male athlete, we don't have to make the decisions that you girls have to make with your pro career. So I didn't have to temporarily put one on hold to start, put my career on hold to start a family. But I'm just lucky. My wife, I didn't want to go overseas for 6 months of the year unless they could come. And initially it was just Neri and I, and then it was Neri, Lucy and I, and then it was Neri, Lucy, Austin and I, and then it was Neri, Lucy, Austin, Lani and I. So we all traveled together. And Neri was just amazing she knew my training schedule and things like when we had, when it was just Lucy, she was our only child. Neri, we got a seat on the back of the mountain bike, and Neri would often come out on parts of my long ride, bring Lucy out. She always got the kids involved in my training. I'd be doing a track session. The kids would be, Neri brought up a video the other day of us in Boulder, and our daughter, who's now 20, running in college, she's like 3 years of age, running. I'm doing laps on the track, and she's running across the middle trying to meet me at the I know, it's just a beautiful, just a great video. And it's interesting because sometimes we think, what's the impact of this on the family? And just being in Nice last weekend and watching 2,500 athletes race, and 99% of them are not professional athletes. There's only a handful of professionals racing, but they're all people with families and real jobs and proper commitments. But watching how emotional they get when they finish because their support crew is there watching and their kids are there, and the impact it's having. I think my kids just grew up thinking that everyone's mum and dad does this kind of stuff. Everyone's, this is normal. This is what families do. They, and we were staples at the kids' race the day before the race. I just think it's a great example to set. And kids, you guys know, our kids they'll find their sweet spot and their passions, and they'll go off and do whatever it is that they do. But I think being in and around sport it's a nice lifestyle, and you do need to find a balance. But I think a lot of that's communicating. And I was lucky. I had a wife who bought into what my dream was and was super supportive. And she knew how important it was for me to not miss that family time. And we just made an effort. Like even in my heavy training blocks in Boulder, we always used to rent a place that had a tennis court, and we'd be playing tennis with the kids in the afternoon, and just doing things that just normal families would do. And but yeah, I think if you're training for a marathon or a triathlon or any sort of, try to get the kids involved. When I know all my kids, once they could ride bikes, would come. I'd be running, they would ride their bikes when I would run, that kind of thing. So all my kids did that.
Helps.
I'm definitely already thinking that. I was literally looking at the new pathways where we are, and my son Leo, he's just turned 4 and he loves riding his bike. So I'm going to attempt my first run with him riding his bike next to me. And give them a job to do. Give him the water bottle to put in his little basket or something. And he'll thrive. And it's so nice hearing you, saying with your daughter when she was only 3 running from side to side on the track. I actually have my marathon medal here, and I leave it out because the boys come into the office and the first thing they get is the medal, and they say, we want a medal like mummy, we want a medal like mummy. And when I showed them it, and then Leo had his little sports carnival, his little 3-year-old thing, and he does his races, and he got a little plastic medal, and it was just like mum, and they wear this all the time. And when I woke up this morning even to go for my run, I was putting my shoes on, and Leo said, mummy, are you going for a running race or are you training? So I'm explaining to him, train for a race, and then he says he wants to go training. So I think it's like you said, it's sort of normalizing it, and then as they get older, they can pick how involved they want to be or not. But creating that normality for them, I think, is so important, for them. And I think also for even mums in the sport too. I said to one of my friends, I get the mum guilt sometimes if I don't run in the morning, or if they're awake and I miss them waking up. And he said to me, but Kate, you're normalizing women in sport, and they're going to grow up knowing women just
Yeah.
in sport because my mum's done it forever. So it's not even going to be a second
Yeah.
thought to them. So it's so, I completely agree with you there, Chloe. Like, it's just normalizing that that's a part of life. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's just what
And
it is.
yeah,
And yeah.
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
great
I've got the next assistant, endurance coach coming
Yes.
along to training with me at the moment, and he's demonstrating how to do those drills. And
Yeah, we've got our house is literally on the Bustleton bike course. If you stand at our front lawn, it's the Ironman WA bike course. So I'm already telling the boys we're standing there, we're cheering for people, and they love it. Cheering
Mm.
for
it's amazing.
bike, and it's just it's just normal life for them.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
That's I can't wait to come down and see a new place.
It's exciting. And look, Crowe, if you're in WA, we will, it would be wonderful to catch up with you. But I do think a Runversation visit on one of the training camps is a definite. And I'm
Definite.
Put it on
Singapore's
the
maybe
schedule.
easier, but I think I could push the boat out to Hawaii.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
Love it.
But thank you for taking the time to chat to us today. Like, we really appreciate you coming on and having a chat about life after sport. So yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invite. It's been fun.
So many
Awesome.
valuable things, and it's been, absolutely incredible, Chloe. Yeah, thank you again.
All right, keep the conversation going.